probably emphasize the nipples more.
Greetings, flesh creatures. It is I, Megatron. On behalf of TFYLP, I want to congratulate you for listening to the most refined collective podcast on this miserable little planet Earth. Yes. Here you'll find knowledgeable fans discussing every aspect of Transformers and beyond. Now, enjoy the show while I continue my path to complete conquest of all of you miserable biological entities. Predacons, terrorize!
Very much on purpose.
Hi, welcome to TFYLP. Hopefully we have the Skype issues fixed now. I don't know, it was doing something weird and completely crashing the system. So anyway, I'm Lucas. I am here tonight with a full crew of cast members. So I have with me Serge.
Hey, good evening.
And Rick.
I think Cogman is the greatest name in Transformers lore. It's just Michael Bay at his Bayest. What are we gonna call him? Fuck it, call him Cogman. Does he look like a bunch of cogs? No. What shouldn't? No, too late. It's done. It's in the script.
And then we have Peter.
Forever Destron.
And Rob.
And we've lost Lucas.
Oh, this is perfect. This is
I'm
great.
a Skype logo.
This should be the whole
I don't know
show.
what's going on. Yeah, there you go.
We have a Skype logo.
This is the whole show right here.
There we
Right,
go.
well, I can be a Skype logo.
I have everyone on camera now, so like I can see everyone. Can you see me, Rob?
My image is now showing up, but there's still a random Skype logo.
No,
Just
just give it a minute. I think I got it fixed.
Okay.
So
Let's
I
hope
believe
so.
I don't know what's going on. I don't know. So anyway, tonight's topic, I didn't come up with the topic. So Serge actually came up with an interesting topic, so everyone wanted to be on. So Serge, tell us what we're going to talk about tonight.
You didn't introduce everyone, Lucas.
Yeah,
who did I miss? Rob?
Me.
It's
on
International
International
Women's
Women's Day.
And we missed Anna.
That's the way you do me, right?
Okay.
Great.
Yeah, sorry about that.
That's the way you do me, Lucas.
What?
Hi,
That's how I
I'm
roll.
Anna, and I've been left out by my friend Lucas. So-called friend Lucas. My
Well,
heart
10
is
minutes
so
in,
broken.
and we still don't know what the topic is. So,
But we do
That's not
know.
how we roll.
Do you know what Lucas
We
did?
know.
So what is the topic tonight, Serge?
So the topic was inspired by a post that I saw on a Facebook group, and someone had asked, the way he worded it, he said, with the recent QC happenings, who is no longer handling their figures? Who's no longer transforming their figures? So that got me to thinking. When it comes to non-retail figures, higher-end figures, be it third-party, official third-party, masterpiece, do higher-end figures that are not really designed to be handled heavily, do they get a pass for that? Like, is it fine for companies to design these figures not to be handled,
So you're
on
not
a
talking
constant
about
basis?
Electro.
No. Well, at the time, they probably designed it thinking you could handle it, not thinking ahead 10 years later.
10 minutes.
Yeah, 10 minutes. But this has been interesting me because, as a fandom, really as the things we collect, a lot of people like to handle their figures, which is, the part of the allure of the line is that it's a puzzle. That's one of the three things that you get with these. And so, rightfully so, everybody likes to solve those puzzles. But, I think more and more.
Do they?
Well, you'd be surprised. I mean, I think it's starting to shift towards a good amount of people that no longer mess with their stuff anymore.
Yeah. And yeah, it did iron out Lucas after like 10 seconds or so.
Yeah, it's good now.
There you go. See, I'm bringing it back. It's like retro TFYLP, where he always constantly had computer issues. So
Thanks, Lucas. We love
yeah,
Retro Week.
let me know if I still have audio issues. Hopefully, Rob got that figured out for me. So we'll see.
The past few shows have been fine. Been listening to them on YouTube.
Perfect.
But back to the topic, Serge.
Yeah. So I guess I just want to hear from everybody else, because I mean, this really hit me once I started buying like the 3.0 stuff, so the non-transforming, and even some other stuff. I think like the Hot Toys also do that. They come with instructions and they show you how to pose the figure. You know, so it shows you, if you do this, it's gonna break. So, they're not really meant to be handled very
Right.
often. You get them out of the box, you pose them, and then you leave it there forever. But some people don't like that. Some people like to take their stuff down and mess with it back and forth. And then while doing so, they'll break a piece, and then they'll say, "Oh, this is bad QC." So where is the line in the sand that separates between bad QC and user error?
There's definitely both. Like, I have strong opinions on this subject, so I'm going to give mine. They are.
Where's your soapbox at, Rob?
I need to get a different graphic for me to be on the soapbox. They are definitely meant to be handled and transformed, but that doesn't mean you handle them the way you do a mass retail figure. They are. I think they're designed with that in mind to some degree. What you pick up on the shelf at Walmart survives drop tests. Like parts are going to be made to pop off if you put too much stress and not shatter and become pointy and sharp and poke a kid's eye out. At least in the U.S., maybe Japan, they don't care. But, so like if you try to handle a high-end figure, and I don't care what the brand is, I don't care if it's third party, I don't care if it's Solo Chogokin, I don't care if it's some other Bandai thing. You have to handle them differently. Like I have Solo Chogokins that broke on me. Like God Mars, the recent God Mars that came out, like the reissue, like a couple years ago. I talked about it on That's My Wallet at some point. It broke pretty grossly, and it was across the board, and that was due to it being poorly made. And Jesus Christ, Rick.
Hey, Rick, would you mind going on mute while you're doing that?
It's so like that's a case of bad QC because it was used as intended, right? In that you're supposed to transform it, and I think when you handle these, you do need to not necessarily full-on kid gloves, but I pretty rarely break stuff. I'm not a sausage fingers type of person, even though I have big greasy hands, but I take my time, and I'm an engineer by trade, a software developer, software engineer. So I mean, you take your time and you look and you see where does things move, and if it gives you resistance, you stop, and you see why does it have resistance, and it's like, oh, there's a nub there that is purposely stopping it, or is it colliding with something else to kind of not to complex design, or is it because I need to move this other part out of the way, right? Whereas a retail figure, you can probably just keep trying, and worst case, an arm pops off and you just pop it back on, right? It's not a big deal. Some people can't get over that, and they are going to just, why doesn't this move? But that doesn't mean there aren't cases of just bad QC as well. But I think they are definitely designed to be moved. You don't put a joint in there and not move it. But they're complex, and you got to take your time. And a lot of people don't want that with their modern transformers. They want something they can transform in 5 minutes, absent-mindedly sitting at their desk. And there's nothing wrong with that. But that's a different goal.
I would be really curious, like what the QC process is for Takara and for the third party companies, like for the high end stuff, because there's certain things I just wonder. Like a good example is the Fans Toys Insecticons, right? And immediately when those figures came out, like they sent them to reviewers, and I think like the majority of the reviewers broke the wings on the kickback. And like it was just one of those things where like literally just half the people were breaking this stuff. And what their answer was is they just sent a crap ton of replacement parts to every retailer and said, here you go. Like if anyone has a problem, send them a replacement. So I just wonder on some of the things like that where they're like too far down the process and they're like, we can't come up with a good like alternative to make this transform and not break it and whatnot. And like, we tried using this, and this, and it just wouldn't work. So like, I'd be curious with some of those types of things, because like, I feel like again, like, what?
Oh, you're back now. You're back now.
back.
You cut out for like 3 seconds.
It's
again,
the
what's that, Rick?
it's the beer screwing it
That's
up.
what it is. But I think that it's like you kind of differentiate it like in two different things. Like if one person like breaks a figure or whatever online and is complaining about it, that's one thing. But like if it's something where there is a big chunk of the fandom that like even people that are careful about it and whatnot are like breaking a figure, like I feel like that's a little bit different. And like, so I think that across the board, every company has had like those type of figures. Like I don't think that there's one company you could point to and say, oh yes, like they make their figures, they engineer them so that they never have problems. Like everyone has at least one or two figures.
You cut out again.
Well,
Yeah. I think we got the gist.
I don't think the company designs anything to fail, right? But there are some companies that excel at customer service.
Yeah,
And
that's true.
if they're willing to produce an extra set of parts to mail out at their cost to distributors or to consumers, you have to give them credit for at least acknowledging the problem. There are some companies that don't acknowledge the problem and say, well, it's broken. You did something to it.
Yeah. With Fans Toys Kickback, that in particular, that toy that's not a breakable part. That is people brute forcing a transformation wrong, but it's just not a great bit of engineering, which is like mine is over there, and I got mine. I didn't hear about all the reports or whatever, but as soon as I saw it, I was like, oh man, like it jumped out. I was like, I'm going to be very careful with this area, and I was, and it's still okay, and I've transformed it several times.
Yeah.
But it's more prone to because again, it's not good engineering; it's bad engineering.
I think too, it just kind of depends on the copies as well, because I think some of those, like the one I had was incredibly tight. So even though I was being careful with it, like I probably should have just put some shock oil on it or something like that before I even did it. Like you mentioned that, Rob, with some of the figures you've gotten recently, it's like, all right, like this just isn't going to work. So
I think, I've broken a few figures being heavy-handed. So nowadays, especially with third party, if I don't know how to transform it, and if the instructions are not helpful, which is industry standard, then I just go to Professor YouTube and I find some already.
I will say, like on the parts placement, what is interesting to me is that like Fans Toys, you can get replacement parts usually. Keith at X Transbox and KFC is extremely good at customer service. Like they're having a big mess with Lock right now, and they said that everyone's going to get a brand new figure that came out today. We'll see if it happens, but like I know when Ollie came out and it was an absolute train wreck from them. The second batch, everybody got it for half off if you bought the first one, which was not something that anybody's seen before or since. And they're saying that XTB is going to arrange it with the retailers. That's what Chosen Prime has put out, that if you bought it through them, for example, like they're like, just chill and you're going to get it, and those are the only two I've ever tried to get part. Well, I take that back. I tried to get a part from TFC once, and that never happened. So
I get a part from Make Toys.
You did?
I tried to. It was the Computron. And I sent them a picture. I told them the problem. They're like, okay, we're on it. And time goes past. Email them again. hey, just following up, haven't heard anything. They email me back a few days later. Oh yeah, we don't have any more parts. So what can you do for me? What can I get to be a satisfied customer? Never heard back.
Yeah.
So that's
How long after the release was that though? Like, was it pretty soon or was it like a number of years?
I would say you're going on maybe 2 years.
So that doesn't seem too bad because they had a lot of those.
Those were
Computrons.
around.
Yeah. And like I had that. I actually I got a Computron off of someone secondhand, the Make Toys one, and I had a similar issue where I had to have a replacement part, and they had it in stock and sent it to me. So it's probably one of those things where it's like if they had it, they probably would have sent it, but they're not going to make another run. But it's like, what are you going to do though? Like that's a tough thing.
It's the fist that clips on to one of the guys. Mm-hmm. That clip is just very flimsy and it only clips on one way. And if you try to pressure it just to fit it in the peg, mine broke off.
So what I find interesting is that the more boutique a company is, the better the customer service. Whereas Takara tells you to go fuck yourself.
Yeah.
Like there's
even Hasbro, like
Hasbro
like
does not care.
The Pulse customer service is absolutely trash. I mean, especially if it's something that's sold out. I mean, they don't even keep extras for just in case. So, like, God forbid anybody who got a Unicron is going to have issues because good luck. I mean, I would hope that they would made extra parts or have some extra something. I doubt it, but I've had some pretty decent good luck with this customer service I needed. I've only had 3 instances where I needed parts. The first one was Planet X, and this was both good on Chosen Prime and Planet X because I bought it at TFCon from Chosen Prime, and when I got home after the show and opened the figure, it turns out I had 2 of the same bumper pieces, so I couldn't transform. It was the Fall of Cybertron Optimus, so it couldn't transform. I hit up Chosen Prime. They told me as soon as they got back to their office, they'd send me a new one, and it took less than a couple weeks for it to come here. And just recently, the Fans Hobby Naval Commander. I'm sure if you've been keeping up with that figure, very common issue that the cab section basically crumbles as soon as you open the box. Mine already had cracks as soon as I opened the box. I had watched Pia's review beforehand, and he gave a few tips on preventing the issues, but mine out of the box was already broken, and mine just completely sheared off. But they're basically sending me a whole new torso, and then I told them that. When I tried doing the separate ears, like because they did 2 ears, like the newer versions, and then they did ones that are styled like the original Armada toy. And when I was trying to do it, like the screw in there was so tight, and I even used like this different screwdrivers, and I ended up stripping the screw. And I asked them like, "Do you mind throwing in an extra screw?" And they're just sending me a whole new head. Like they're like, you know what? We'll just send you a whole new head with all the pieces and everything. So and I didn't have to pay a single cent, no shipping, no nothing. They're sending all of that to me.
Yeah, Fans Hobby that kind of reminds me of like X-Transbot's Lock, where they're like, we're just going to redo this figure for any of them that have sold to people, and we're recalling the others. I believe Fans Hobby's doing the same with Naval Commander because the torso issue is so common. Mm-hmm. It's just like we're going to have to rerun this part, and we're recalling toys to replace it.
Hey,
because it's a pin.
Serge, did anybody see that guy who opened up his HasLab Unicron and the wings were broken?
Yep, I saw that. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
I haven't heard.
I want to talk about Takara real quick. I've had really good luck with Takara, where I've had really good. So I've had 2 Masterpiece toys break on me right out of the box, and I got new Masterpieces sent from Takara.
How do you even contact them?
Yeah.
I'm surprised they shipped out of Japan.
Yell really loud.
Well, Rick probably has a guy.
All right. Let's rewind. What I didn't share with you, my friend in Japan contacted Takara.
Yeah, that's more like it.
And he traded in my broken ones and got new ones from Takara. So if you're in Japan, I guess, Takara, them take advantage of you.
Well, who was
I
the
don't think
retailer?
there might be like a weird customer service thing where like because they don't sell outside of Japan, they may not be allowed to
Yeah.
service those customers.
Yeah.
But Hasbro
one time
does a fantastic job with their customer service.
Oh my god, dude! I've only dealt with them once, with Hasbro once, and after that, never again. I think I bought, I forgot what had came missing a piece, and I told them about it, and they just like sent me a bunch of crap that I already had, because they just send you whatever they have on hand, and like to make it up, they'll send you more than what you bought. But like often it's just like a bunch of like shelf warmers that you can find at whatever store is nearest you, and they just send you like I've seen people get like 2 of them. Like they sent 2 of the same figure.
Everybody needs 2 Ratchet. You know
Who doesn't?
You know what you do then? A shitty person takes them and returns them to the store for store credit.
Yeah, my understanding with like Takara and Hasbro both though is like they're just like it's the retailer's problem. We're too big to deal with our customers.
Yeah,
it's the retailer's problem, which is shitty when you're dealing with collector items.
but at least Pulse should be better because their Pulse is the same. Pulse doesn't even have customer service. They refer you to Hasbro. If you have a problem with the Pulse order, they give you the option to either return it and get your money back, or if you want a replacement, they tell you to take it up with Hasbro. Like,
they didn't me. The email I go to.
If they have it on hand, they'll replace it.
Yeah,
they didn't. For me, they waited 2 weeks to respond to me. Said they would get me a replacement out. I waited a month. Nothing ever arrived. I never got a tracking number. I emailed them again. Said, hey, what happened with this? Waited 2 more weeks, and they're like, we issued a refund on your credit card. And then it's like, all right. That was the Black Richie with 2 left arms.
But you've never had a problem with any other companies though, Rob, like NECA or anything like that, right?
It's not. NECA can go die in a fire. I keep buying all their shit, but they're miserable. Like you don't sell stuff on your store, but ugh. Yeah, please.
Every
Anna and Peter
inquiry that I put towards Pulse, they've been great about, right? They've gotten back to me. They told me all the information I needed about a month later. So it's been really convenient. It's just like, oh, I have this urgent question. Then a month later, it's like, why is Pulse emailing me? They seem so talky.
Now,
that
is a third-party vendor that Hasbro has contracted to be distributed.
Be their thing.
Yeah, so they
sometimes.
I mean, I'm sure they probably say they care about customers and want to alleviate the problems, but if you want anything other than a refund,
I see that in their emails. Yeah,
with the owner. Yeah.
Well, they don't want bad word of mouth, and it spreads quickly, especially the bad stories. So
yeah,
I don't know.
Bad stories are there. There's a metrics somewhere where there's a spreadsheet, and it's number of complaints versus number of products produced versus number of products sold. How many complaints they get, and if it doesn't reach that threshold,
yeah.
I
that's
think
a line from Fight Club, I think.
I was gonna say, I think the difference too is there's a lot of these big companies that are trying to get into high-end collectibles, and they just don't have that same level of customer service that like some of these other shops do. So like when you're dealing with like a Big Bad Toy Store or Chosen Prime or somebody like that or whatnot, right? Like they're gonna take care of you as much as they can, right? And they stock extra stock so that they have replacement parts for the most part, like if they can. Whereas like, Amazon or somebody like that is just like, if there's, an extra,
we'll send you another one.
Exactly. No, like if they have it in stock, but then a lot of those, like these exclusives that Amazon has, it's like, yep, sorry, bud. Like you're out of luck, duck.
Yeah.
That's my story.
But with Amazon, though, like I don't really expect them to have extras. I mean, they have so much product in these warehouses. I don't expect them to keep extra set of ratchets and lifelines because mine came missing a wheel,
Right.
Yeah. What I hate is that and this is kind of morphed into a quality control discussion a bit, but
we should work it back in a second.
Yeah. With the nightmare that is buying exclusives in the toy market these days, Everybody and their mom is getting into it the past couple of years. It's funny, like at the time Toys R Us died, everyone started realizing that there's a collector market for their nostalgic lines.
Mhm.
But no one knows how to deal with collector lines. Ordering them is a nightmare, and quality control isn't any better, and they don't know how to do customer support on it when parts are messed up. If you're giving a toy to a kid and it has 2 left robot arms, just like, meh. Little Johnny can still play with it. Who cares, right? Yeah. He can make up a story about it. I mean, that's what I did as a kid. You get a broken toy missing something, you make up a story about it. You go
Versus
battle damage.
Yeah.
Or $500
Yeah.
on.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
these people are getting exclusives. They don't get extra. They don't know how to get parts. They don't realize that these need to be right. But they're not considering that
Yeah.
it's a gap in your collection if you can't get a replacement.
So
And it's like, you can't just send me something else. I don't want a refund. I want the toy for my collection.
Right.
And you're killing me, Smalls.
Poor spot because you spent a certain amount of your money on something. If it's high end, it's an even worse sore spot because now you can't resell that.
yeah.
You can, but you're not going to get what you should.
And
Well-
I've been there too. I've like my Fans Toys Coot. I was half awake when I was trying to transform it. I
That was a bad
cracked just
idea.
an internal part of the shoulders, and it's not going to interfere with the toy. It's not going to interfere with the transformation, but I wouldn't feel right selling it. And if I did sell it, I'd have to sell it much cheaper, which is a big bummer,
We should
So I
hit them up
think
for
this is-
parts.
I could try. I think this is like a good segue back into like Serge's original idea is kind of why we don't mess with a lot of our collectibles is that it's nerve-wracking, right? Like now that Coot is hard to get a hold of, which is the Fans Toys.
He's reissued.
Is he reissued? Good.
Yeah.
When
Because
he was hard
extra
to
Well,
get a
Fans
hold
Toy
of,
stuff, they could reissue them to the Sun and they'll sell out every time.
I was so angry at myself for having broken mine because it's like now he's rare. I can't get a new one. I
Yeah.
can't sell him. What have I done? Oh my goodness, I've ruined everything. I super freaked out. And that's like the feeling you get, like knowing now just
That it was your
how
fault.
right. What? Knowing how valuable
Well-
much like these 2-packs were, right? Like the Skywarp pack, they got up to such crazy value. Suddenly I wanted to be a little more careful with it. And I just sold it because I was like, I don't want this. It's too expensive. It's annoying. I'm going to get rid of it. So I think a lot of it really does come from the fact that we think of like, the big consequence if we break something,
Especially-
even.
If these things are expensive, $100 to a lot of people is still a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
To anybody, it's $100 is a lot of money unless you're making millions, but $100 is a lot. So I definitely take that into account as soon as I open something up, especially if it's an older release. Just over the weekend, I was putting away some figures, and I had the Family Mart Revenge of the Fallen Prime, the clear one. And I was rotating my display, so I was putting him back into storage. And I obviously never transformed it. I never will. But just even putting it back into the box was so nerve-wracking because I'm like thinking in my head, I'm like, what if I trip from like moving from my shelf to where the box is, or what if like something happens, I bump into something and it falls. So, I treated it I almost wanted to put gloves on just to put it back inside the box.
House.
Huh?
What if a meteorite hits your house?
Yeah, no, I mean, you never know. I mean, earthquake will hit.
With that, I would say, I think there might be some, figures that aren't made like really low run special exclusives, like Lucky Draw all gold crap. That probably they
All
don't
clear.
expect you. Yeah, or all clear, or like something like all chrome, all gold, like those. They might not expect you to transform it, but that's not like the only release of the figure, right? Like there's
Yeah.
other versions of it to get out there and play with. And those came first. Those are designed and engineered to be messed with. And the new one you get, yeah, you can mess with it, but everybody knows clear plastic sucks. And yeah, if you paint that thing all gold like that, you're going to chip the crap out of it. Or if it
Painting
even
it
if that's
any
chrome.
color, really. Any of these painted figures, even the third-party figures like Fans Toys, if they're painted all over,
You're going
to chip something.
And I think that's just the nature of the beast. And to me, I don't love, seeing, chipping my figures, but it doesn't bother me to that
Yeah.
degree. Like, it's not going to stop me from playing with it. But does that mean I'm just like, no, I take my time.
Space battles.
And they engineer them to have paint. they put in gaps and tolerances so that you should be able to move the parts that you need to move without rubbing the paint off for the most part, unless it's NECA figures on any joint and they paint the joints for some reason, and out of the box the paint's already rubbed off. It's like, what the hell are you doing, guys?
Or the paint's so thick the peg just busts.
The other way around, right?
Oh, every NECA figure that I've ever owned, that's something is wrong with it.
Yeah. So no, I think they're made to be with again, exception of that like special run type stuff.
All right.
So, but I oh, sorry, go on, Rick.
Can we go around the room and just say which figures we've busted, real quick? that like you regret, like.
I don't regret any of them. They're toys.
No. Yeah, it just happens.
I don't think I've broken anything like high end. I've broken Hasbro stuff.
High-end stuff.
I mean, I broke Sola Chogokin Gunbuster because I had the audacity to move his fingers, and entropy always wins, friends. That's an older figure, and the fingers just disintegrated. It's not like I did anything. It's just plastic's old. It's going to happen, and I'm thinking like I put together X Transbots Ministor the other day, right? And he's over there, whatever. And I'm like, there's a lot of die cast. That's a heavy figure. Over time, that pressure is going to weigh down on that stuff, and that plastic is going to give at some point. I love die cast, but I understand it's. No. I love the feel of it in hand. I should say.
If it's placed in the right way. I mean, if they just go willy nilly and put it all over the figure, it's not going to last. I mean, look at MPO1. We're starting to see it.
Mine's still standing up. Mine's still standing up. Knock on wood. Well, don't ask me later tonight how it looks.
Well, that's my question too. Is on some of these figures where they they put in die cast, or say that they may put in like ball joints or like friction joints. So that they have additional articulation. Like the Flames Toys figures are kind of that way, where, they're absolutely fantastic with, those the high-end figures with the articulation. But if you mess with it too much, then all the joints are just going to be crap after a while.
That's when you take nail polish and you paint over the ball joints
But is that a design flaw? Or, did they not expect that people were going to be manhandling their $400 figure?
It's not a design flaw if it's not painted. If it's a painted ball joint, they should have known better. If it's a non-painted ball joint, it's just wear and tear, man.
Mm-hmm.
It's a good point that Rob kind of brought up, though, is that even when you try to preserve your figures by not messing with them, something can still go wrong. There's yellowing. There's plastic degrading over time. There's these stories we were hearing a little while about the explosion effects kind of like melding with figures when they were left on for too long or whatever. I don't know how true those stories were, but there are bad things that happen to your toys when they just sit on the shelf as well. Like that one time when my dog came up and peed on Metroplex. That wasn't cool. Yeah. Metroplex had just been standing there for, months, but he just... got a little yellow dye on him.
So you talk about yellowing, right?
Well, Piss Magnus? Oh, no, it's not Piss Magnus.
Piss Magnus. That's Piss Prime now.
So it wasn't supposed to be that color.
No, it's like somebody took Vaseline.
Is it a lunchtime special?
The lunchtime tea break.
It's a lunchtime Optimus, right? But I mean, the thing was like crystal clear when I got it.
Yeah, a lot of those are happening. And if it's not the plastic, it's like the rubber, the clear rubber that they did, and now you've got like the piss piss tires.
Yeah, I mean, it's one that anything that has plastic in it that moves, and even if it doesn't move, it's just at some point in time it's going to get more brittle. It's going to wear, and I do think they can design. There are ways to mix your plastic better or worse to handle certain movements better and worse, and to handle a certain amount of weights better and worse. Just because we've seen that, all plastic isn't created equal, far from it. And that's why you pick up a toy from Fans Toys versus MMC versus Hasbro versus Takara versus XTB. They all feel different because they are all using their own secret sauce for plastic.
And plastic, whatever chemical compounds you use to create your plastic, that's going to have an effect on tolerance. It's going to have effect on wear and tear. It's going to have effect on if something starts to yellow.
Rick, at your time at Hasbro, do you have any experience with like the QC process? Were things in the designing stage? Did they take these kinds of things into consider? I know they take into
Especially the
consideration
higher
kids. Yeah, I know kid stuff like they'll take into consideration that some kid is going to throw it across the room because it's a jet plane. But
Right.
do they design like these ball joints are going to hold up for 10 years before they start getting loose, or is there anything in the design process aside from the obvious that were brought up?
So that's kind of a loaded question. All right. So I'll start off by saying that Hasbro at the time when I was there, they did have an in-house safety tester, and they would go above and beyond federal standards. They would drop the things, they would smash them, they would set them on fire, they would melt them, they would shred them. There was all sorts of tests that they would do. I really don't know that much about designing to stand up to the test of time. That definitely was not something I was ever involved in. But I can tell you that from experience, you know what parts may tend to break. So when you create that mold out of a certain metal. So these pieces are going to go in this mold. This is going to be this type of metal, which is extremely durable. These could be the regular steel that we're going to use, right? But the feet here and the hand joints that connect to the wrist, these have to be this metal so that we know that when that plastic is poured into it, they're going to be a little bit stronger, and you're going to be able to play with it more without risk of breaking it.
That's good stuff.
Interesting.
And then they would still use clear plastic joints.
Well, you put your best foot forward, and then somewhere along the line, to reduce costs, let's say you need an extra deco hit. So now you're going from using your A plastic to your B plastic, right? Mm-hmm. Or if the exclusive team gets it, hey, we're only going to make 10,000 of these. So let's just all run the same plastic. Right. And then, of course, over time, the more you use a mold, the more it gets used, the looser things can get. Really good example is that first Chug Starscream.
That's immediately what my mind went to.
Yeah, they rebuilt that, didn't they?
They have rebuilt that mold at least twice that I know of.
Wow. And that's not considering the knockoff companies that got a hold of something. Because there was a bunch of knockoffs of straight up.
Oh, yeah, all the CHMS stuff.
Yeah.
Then the club ran off with it, too, in their last couple of years.
Oh, and those were garbage as far as quality.
Those were made from the last mold.
And it was still garbage?
The plastic at that point. Not the mold. Because the mold was in pretty good shape. I ran a spreadsheet of what molds we still had available, and we could actually locate. Most of the Beast Wars molds were there. Turns out pretty much every RID mold was gone because it had been used so much. The Car Robot Brothers, Convoy, Ultra Magnus, gone.
Well, that's why the Encore one was probably garbage then.
That was a new mold.
Oh.
And all the minicons. The first 2 years of Armada minicons, all gone. They made so many goddamn minicons.
They made a few.
That those molds were gone. You can't. They don't exist anymore. If you try to run them, it'd crack. It would break.
So why are the Beast Wars ones still in good shape?
The molds probably still exist, but if you tried to run it now, it would crack. That actually happened with one of the G.I. Joe vehicles. Hasbro actually had the mold for the Mauler, and they were going to do it for the Collectors Club in green and blue. And when they started running them, the turret broke, and it was such a big piece to retool that it just wasn't cost effective for the club.
Well, that's a shame. I mean, I don't give a shit about GI Joe, but you know.
Mm. And that would
sucks
come
for
out of
those
the
people.
club's pocket, right? Had they tried to retool
Yeah,
something.
if they wanted to do it, because Hasbro wasn't using it.
Mhm.
But you know what's funny is there was a GI Joe vehicle that was missing the wheels. At one point, segue. At one point, all the GI Joe vehicle molds were in the basement at the warehouse down the street. A disgruntled employee, nobody knows who, went to every single mold and took out one piece. So
Wow.
nobody knows who it was. Nobody knows when it happened. But every single GI Joe vehicle was missing one piece. Club got hold of the I forget what it was. It's a car. It lays landmines. It has like a tank turret on it.
I don't know.
Anyway, they had the wheels were missing. So the club paid to have the wheels retooled, but the club owned that tool. So here comes
They own the wheels.
and they have to then a few years later they realize, oh, the club used that mold, it's available and it's in good shape, we can use it too. Hey, can we use your wheels? Not without paying. Hasbro went back and retooled the wheels again.
Oh, so funny.
Like my own wheels with blackjack.
And then to end the story on a high note, some dumbass got into a position of power. She did not know shit about GI Joe. She was put in a position where she was in charge of the brand. She did not last long. She's like, "What are we doing with all these molds over at the warehouse? Just sell them. Just recycle them." And she sold off all the GI Joe vehicle molds for scrap metal. And when we found out about it, we tried to intercept it. They were already gone from the warehouse.
I had heard that a lot of the molds had disappeared. I didn't
Yeah.
know that part of the story.
They
That's
sold for scrap.
tragic. That's tragic.
Wow.
By any fans, they were sold for scrap metal. And the lady got lit up. She didn't get fired. She eventually got fired, but she killed a big part of the brand that day.
Wow.
It's a bummer.
That's like she was on the job for a month, and that was her one contribution to GI Joe history.
This is a racing Joe history, single-handedly.
What happened to the Star Wars molds? A lot of the Star Wars molds from the Kenner line, they were sold off to be used as anchors.
I remember at a
Well,
TFCon, Aaron Archer
Found
made a
them.
joke about that.
Yeah, ships would just tie a rope around them, throw them overboard. There's an anchor.
Yeah, he made a joke because somebody had asked him at the panel, like, these molds are huge. We're like, what do you guys do with them? You can't possibly store all of them. And he said, obviously ones where they knew they were never going to use again or that were damaged, they would sell them, like you said, for scrap. Or he said that same example, an anchor. And so he said somewhere at the bottom of the Chinese Ocean, there's a ship anchored down with the GI Joe mold.
Yeah, never say never. So
Fantastic.
I learned from that GI Joe incident. This was, I think, 2009, and they learned from that incident. And now they at the time when I left, every mold was saved.
So, Peter, I know you're like me in that, like, you like masterpiece stuff and you like third-party stuff, and you play with your toys. I don't know if do you use instructions or not? Typically?
I don't.
I didn't think so.
They're never good.
No, the instructions are always bad, and I just don't like opening the instructions. I feel bad doing it, so I don't.
Yeah.
I'm
If
the
I
same
like
boat, because once you open the tape, you can't put it. It's just not the same.
Yeah,
It's not the same.
the bag is misshapen, and then it hurts my brain. But like Rick said earlier, if I get really, really stuck, I'll go to YouTube and just like, okay, where's this spot? I know so-and-so is transforming it. There it is. Is that supposed to bend that way? It doesn't feel like it's supposed to bend that way. Oh, I guess it is. Click. Okay, we're good. I just don't want to force anything. Which reminds me, like when you were working on Blur at that TFCon, and I know there are extenuating circumstances or whatever, but you were on that shoulder piece for like 2 hours.
Yeah.
And we watched you. We watched you, and you're like, you could see, you were like, it's supposed to go. Now, wait a minute. It's supposed to go. Wait a minute. And then we'd get distracted in conversation and go back to, and you would And then you figured out that it opened up completely, and and
From there it went.
Yeah, and from there we moved along with
The rest was history.
with the adventure. I'm the same way. I don't want to force anything. I just want to watch it because I can see how it's supposed to go in my head. I can see how, like, where the pins are and the screws are and the joints are supposed to be and the seams are, and it should be like this, but it's not. Okay, I'm scared. So I don't want to force anything, but I'm not going to not play with the thing. I just spent this money on this puzzle that I want to play with in a character that I love in a format that I enjoy. I'm going to play with it. I haven't broken anything major. I cracked something on my Ocular Max, the white Teregis Rally Deco. I cracked something on the bumper.
I don't like that mold.
So we had the Unicron prototypes at Hasbro.
Armada?
You broke it?
And I broke a little tab off one of them.
Like the G1 ugly thing?
Unicron, yeah.
Oh.
I put it back, but you could tell it was like flopping.
Oh man.
It was the one we had in the display case.
So,
whoops.
Since you play with toys the way I do, Peter, I'm just curious, like, do you think that they are meant to be messed with?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, every one of my, I get all the different combiners, not all of them. Don't look at my examples behind me. These are old examples, but I've got other stuff over here. I play with all of it. I combine all of it. I test it all out. I'll run through. And if it's something fun, like the Fans Toys Stomachons, they're brilliant. They're freaking brilliant. I love them, and I want to play with them forever. And I'm going to take them down and transform them occasionally because, one, cars are neat, and two, robots are neat, and three, these molds and these designs are just fun. Yeah. So I'm going to play with them. I don't care if it's a $600 set altogether, once it's all done or whatever, or more.
Yeah, they're fun to mess with. It was just, I was messing with Spoiler the other day, and I chipped a little bit of the paint, and I was like, well, that's it. I'm never doing that again.
We're talking about new toys, Rob.
We're talking about just like higher end toys, which brings up something that I wanted to. I was going to bring that up. We have.
I was going to bring him up. I don't touch him.
You can. Black Zerg.
Oh.
But people will spend a lot of money on. They'll buy a Galaxy Shuttle for $1,000, or they'll buy a Guard City, knowing that it's a Defensor, and open their Guard City and play with it, and just like playing with Guard City, la 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 la. And
Tony at TFCon was doing that. He bought a Guard City and he was like messing with it. He's like, "Hey guys, you want to check this out?" And we're just like, "No, we're good. We'll just watch you."
I don't want to be held liable.
If I bought Guard City, I would totally put it together for what it's worth. I mean, that's not a pile of gold plastic.
No, but it's different when it's not your thing. Like I've had this where Anna has brought over some of the newer Masterpiece that I haven't bought, and it's like I've gotten stuck on it to where, like the Hound, and I'm like, all right, I've gotten to the point. I don't want to keep going. Here, I'll put it back because I don't.
Yeah, I had to take a mingled Hound to fix
I'm sorry. I'm so sorry.
You broke her Hound?
No, I didn't break it. I got it halfway, and then I was like, I don't feel comfortable going any further. But the one thing I'm really curious for Takara specifically is, I feel like the older Masterpiece figures were, like, however they were made, I feel like that they were, like, it seemed like they were more meant to be played with than the current ones. And I could be...
They were just more durable.
That's what I'm saying, is they were more durable.
They were more durable, that's for sure.
I swear the older Masterpiece stuff, my kid was pretty young at the time, and I didn't really feel that bad about letting him mess with... Now, he was good with toys at the time, but I didn't feel bad about it, whereas now I would totally like Bumblebee or something. There's no way I'd let a kid mess with Bumblebee.
I don't think it's necessary that they're doing it on purpose. We're designing this to be more fragile. I think it's just the cost of doing business when something has a higher parts count. If there's more parts to break, you have a higher chance of breaking something. The old Masterpieces, that MPO1 is, that thing transformed in 10, 15 steps, basically.
Right.
MPO1,
but even the newer, smaller ones, like the Datsun guys or the Lambo, like the Sideswipe mold, even those guys, it's like they knocked out the ones that were easier to engineer first. You know, they're like nice chunky transformations or really simple, not simple like, oh, you know, like pop up formers or whatever, but and now they're getting into the ones who are just ridiculously shaped, like Sunstreaker. How do you make that happen, Hound? How do you make that happen with all the
Animation cheated a lot.
Yeah.
Paint first.
I want to go with something Peter said just a little bit ago about when like you're trying to transform something or when you want to play with something and you can't because you're afraid you'll break it or you're afraid, you see that joint that you just don't get how it works. You go online to try to figure it out. Like it doesn't matter how high or low end the toy is. If I can't play with it, I get so frustrated. Like I've spent the last week utterly frustrated at this thing. Because I like it. I'm holding up X-Pants, Ultimate X-Pants. And I love this thing. I think it's cool. I love how it looks. I like transforming it. I like playing with it in an airplane. I don't think I can ever go back to airplane because I cannot figure out how to pull this leg joint out of its little clippy hole here without having to like utterly just rip it in half. And I've even asked friends how to do it. And they're like, well, you just kind of wiggle waggle it. And it's like, good grief. And it sucks because...
You gotta pour butter on it.
Butter. I got it. I'll go get the butter of it. I'll melt it first.
So that it doesn't...
I would agree with you to some degree there, Anna. I did not enjoy transforming that toy.
I've heard a lot of people say they didn't enjoy transforming it. I actually really liked it because I felt the part where it like melted from being Jetfire and morphed into this other thing. It was fun.
It's always funny.
This is stuck and I'm angry.
It's always funny when you get to consult the council on how to transform something. I can't tell you how many times I've called up Christians like, hey, you have this, right? How'd you do this? Like, I can't figure it out. YouTube's no help. What did you do?
Because like I have a few Fans Toys figures. Like I have Coot and I have Rouge and something else probably. But
you got, the worst stuff.
Right.
As far as engineering.
All of them, I like the figures. I like them in both modes. And I look at them and I say I can never transform them again. Eventually, it's going to make me sell them. Eventually I'm going to look at it and be like, that's not fun to have anymore. Even though this, Hasbro cup is garbage in the face, at least I can transform it. So I'm just going to keep that and get rid of my Coot. It's going to happen eventually because it's just like, I don't see a point in having these things if I can't enjoy them. And I enjoy them by transforming them and posing them and making them do dances and other silly things. That's where it's fun.
I refuse to be afraid of my collection. If I own it and I want to play with it, I will take my time. And if something breaks, it really does suck.
It does.
But it's not the end of the world. There's always something else. It's... I live with it. And Peter has a horse.
Are you gonna break this
if it wasn't
horse,
for
Peter?
my horse, I wouldn't have spent that year in college.
Oh, is he going to get on his high horse and tell us something?
Oh.
No.
No.
Are you
There's a horse
snapping
that's been staring at me.
Nick?
No.
Oh yeah, I mean nay.
Yeah.
I love the complicated stuff. I love it. I love the challenge. I like my brain being hurt. it's always fun, especially like how Anna said that she had to take home the mangled Hound. It's even funnier when a non-fan sees that shit. Like when I was doing the Fans Toys Motormaster and my girlfriend walked by and it's like all mangled and I'm like, this is a truck. And it's like all like the legs are like all over the place. I spent like an hour transforming and I go up to her like, look at what I did, and she's like, that's nice.
And she's like, don't call me your girlfriend. It's Mom.
Back to Masterpiece Hound for a minute. Like, to me, that's one of the saddest stories in Transformers history because I am absolutely in love with the look of that toy, especially in robot mode. And I actually really enjoy the transformation on it. It is, I don't know, I just think it's a really good transformation. And obviously, Takara botched it with the quality of the plastic.
Yep.
And it was made to be transformed. It's extremely clever engineering. It's very nicely done. It's just, oops, wrong plastic.
So
Yeah.
I agree with you. Like that one wasn't the case that it was hard to transform. I was just terrified of breaking it. I took forever to transform that thing, and I really don't want to do it again. It's another one of those that I'm going to look at one day.
It's one that I am a little afraid of, and I don't like being afraid of my toys. Like there's some like Black Zarek. I don't touch it because of GPS. You know, if I want to play with the toy, I'll play with Scorponok. That's fine.
Right.
Yeah,
There are other examples like that. Like, what Electro are you going to play with?
I don't even bother buying it.
Yeah.
You know, who cares? You know, I'll just I'll get some dirt and put it in a bag and say it's
Can't
Electro.
mess with my G2
I
slingshot.
have
Right.
an Electro that's carded that's actually broken.
My G2 slingshot, my carded G2 slingshot and my carded Electro are both unbroken, so I'm happy with that.
All the transmetals that turned into snow globes.
So-
Keep them in package.
On
The
Breeze
key
Fire.
is to buy those figures already broken, so that way you're not the one breaking it.
The key is to buy 2.
I do have a box of broken toys that I bought from someone. I was smart. I didn't know it.
Like, your comment earlier, Lucas, about like you felt the old masterpieces were more durable, and they were, but that's where the focus of the line has shifted. When they went to extreme cartoon accuracy, like that requires much more complex engineering because you can't give Starscream these big hit panels anymore, right?
And here's
and the animation cheats so much you have to get really clever with what you do.
Yeah.
Plus, they decided to start painting their figures as well, which means you need to take more time, or else you will chip it even worse, right?
And here's a question I have that's related to the overall topic. And the question is not whether or not they're succeeding at it, but is the direction that the Masterpiece line is taking, do you feel that Takara is trying to compete with these high-end lines? Like, this is like they're trying to make an official high-end toy line specifically meant just for the collector market. Because I think the Masterpiece line and its identity shifted once they went into animation. It went from, hey, these are really nice representations of these G1 characters to like, this is it. This is like the creme de la creme, the top, this is as good as it's going to get.
It absolutely did.
I think that competing with the third parties and themselves would be indiscernible. Like, they have to one up themselves, right? You have to keep doing better than you did last time. Just like, that's the only reason we have these cool Generations figures. That's the only reason Masterpiece has gotten better. And, does that mean they've also competed with third party? Even if it's by accident? Yes. Did they mean
It's not by accident.
We'll never know. Who knows?
Like,
it doesn't matter, but they are getting better. But in this case, I think better will exclude some of us. Right? Like, I was really worried when we went to Studio Series 86 because the Studio Series movie figures have kind of excluded me. Like, I don't enjoy playing with those anymore because they're so complex that they annoy me, that I don't really have fun with them. Because I mean, obviously I can transform anything that I want to, but it's frustrating to do certain ones. So, I was really worried that at Studio Series 86, I was going to, open Hot Rod and be like, oh my God, this is so stupid. I never want to transform it again. And it hasn't so far, which is great. I'm very happy for that. But I feel like MP has recently kind of pushed me out because it's not fun anymore to transform them. Like, it doesn't matter how long it takes. It doesn't matter anything else. Owning something like Hound makes me sad. Like Rob said, it's kind of a tragedy.
I mean, I would note that I still find Takara's engineering excellent, except for RC.
Yeah.
I actually extremely disliked RC. But that's a show.
I need to get one.
And then that one doesn't really break. Like, I know.
Yeah, I know the quality's good on it, but
I didn't know.
I have complaints about that. That's a different story.
Mhm.
It's one too where, like, if you look at the gaming, like, Anna, I know you like AGDQ as well, right? Speedrunning and stuff. It's fun to observe, at least. If you look at like the ROM hacks people used to play 10 years ago and what was challenging then to what the modern day player plays, the whole community has leveled up their skill. And Transformers are no different. If you look at MPO1, MPO1 was insane at its time. Like the complex engineering on it. Like MP Grimlock, when it came out, was like brilliant in how the tail folded into the feet. We'd never seen that before. And now you never see anything else, right? And but we get better at what we transform to the point where, like, a lot of modern day figures, if they came out 15 years ago, we'd have been like, this is the most complex piece of crap I've ever seen. And there's some limit to that. But I do think we all kind of get more used to more complex transformations. And once you've seen that pattern, that's just kind of a human thing. Like we're good at recognizing patterns and repeating them and getting used to them. And then it doesn't scare us anymore. And then it doesn't seem like a big deal, right? Like I can't think of one off my head, but I know I got some, masterpiece stuff behind me that after I've transformed it a few times, it's like, I remember being daunted by that toy first, like getting through it. Now it's like bump, 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 bump. I mean, it still takes me a bit because it's 100 steps, but it's
and it's even more jarring when it's a retail figure, like the Revenge of the Fallen Prime. Like when that came out, that was just like mind blowing at just how tough that was.
We got email for that.
Yeah, Rick told the stories before. Like
really,
it made
I haven't heard them.
That switch things at Hasbro to make them more intuitive.
And then that's one of those things that's in the eye of the beholder. So like Anna, you talk about like you don't like modern MP because they're not fun. And to me, there's a difference. Like long transformations and complex, I don't mind if they're intuitive. And to me, most of Takara's engineering is extremely intuitive, except for RC, in my opinion. And so I really enjoy it. But like Fans Toy stuff can be just as complex, but like their movie line stuff is not intuitive at all, in my opinion. But again, that's person to person. And so those I don't enjoy at all.
Well, and that's the thing I think too is that for me a lot of it depends on the company, because like the companies employ the same designers a lot of the time, and so then if you like that designer and what they do, then you're gonna like go with that company. So it's like, again, like I don't like Fans Toys, but like I love what MMC does. Like I always enjoyed the Make Toys ones as well and whatnot. So like, I'll just keep getting, MMC stuff because I feel like that their transformations make sense to me. And usually they're pretty intuitive and whatnot. Whereas like Fans Toys, I mean, I don't think that they're great. XTB is kind of like 50-50, I feel like, with some of their stuff. Like some of the things it's like, why did you make it this way? Wind Charger was that way, like where you had to
why'd you make the
bend
hand
plastic.
so difficult? Yeah.
Well, even like the legs, you had to like bend plastic to get it past each other, kind of thing. It's like
I hate when any company does that. Even Takara's done that. It's annoying.
Don't do that, guys. Come on. What's interesting with like X Transbots? Like I've seen people, with the lock drama, and they're like, oh, typical X Transbots overcome. It's like, they haven't been doing that for the past 2 years. The Monolith trailer and from reviews, Lock, I haven't gotten mine in yet. It's lost in shipping. Like those are a step backwards in engineering. I don't know what's happened because like Lock is a very different design than what they originally revealed. But I had to take all my X Transbots cars and put them back into car mode to combine them up, right? And I still absolutely loved all of them. And I was just like, man, these are so good. These are such good toys. I took my time with them. There are, kind of scattered reports of various breakers, like Dragstrip's shoulders are one of the big ones. Mine are still okay, knock on wood. Some people's dead ends, like their hips have shattered.
Oh, I seen that a lot this week.
Like mine are still okay, knock on wood. But yeah, if something's squeaking, you should shock oil it, and you take your time with it. And if something squeaks, don't just, look at that, it keeps doing it. You're kind of asking for it, but that doesn't mean there isn't a flaw in engineering. It was still made to be messed with.
Yeah.
But they are so well designed, and the trailer just sucks. It's terrible.
It was. The trailer had just such bonehead decisions.
Yeah.
Like I've seen a lot of people breaking it at the knee in combined mode, and you look at where it broke, and it's like, you're holding up all the weight with like a single screw. Like of course it's gonna break off. Like that's such a bonehead design choice.
Yeah, and then there's good examples in third party of how to do some of those joints. Like Toy World Constructor has very solid connection points, right? And it doesn't have die cast in it, which again, I do like die cast in hand, but I understand from longevity, it's kind of dumb. So I'm really torn on that. I'm conflicted. But so like, I'm really worried about Fans Toys combiners because those things are going to be heavy as hell. And like, how is that going to hold up? And I wonder if they know because they haven't finished a set yet. So I wonder if they're trying to figure that out too. Like,
Yeah, that's been one of the rumors, especially with Superion, is that they might have gone back to the drawing board like shit.
We've tried to put this together. Like, because they cranked out those first 3 really quick, and then just right.
Well, you just are a model and just make only the feet die cast.
I mean, I think that's a smart move, but I think it's hard to do that when you're doing a team, unless you're doing like add-on feet parts. That would make sense. But and then nowadays I don't think since MP44 I don't think they've done die cast in anything, have they? Or
Takara?
Yeah, I think they've been all plastic.
No,
Well,
MP44 has. Oh, did you say since 44?
I mean, including 44. Does he have diecast in there?
He has diecast on the waist joint, like
Okay.
the ab crunch. Yeah, that joint right there is diecast. They'll do like diecast structural stuff,
Okay.
but I don't think they've done like outright, like diecast feet or something like that.
Yeah.
But I think in general that like you can definitely see the transforming figures, like how hard it is to make those high quality and not break and whatnot. Because like some of the 3A figures where it's like they're loaded up with die casts and they're really great and you don't really have to worry about those as much, but they're action figures. They're not Transformers. And so it's like all of the examples we're giving, it's all like issues when you're transforming. It's not necessarily like, okay, well, if you're just going to keep them in robot mode and pose them and things like that, it's not going to be quite the same as, like if you're flipping them back and forth.
I really like the point that Rob made earlier about us kind of like growing with the figures as they get more complex and whatnot, because I was thinking about that with combiners, right? In the time before we ever had third-party combiners, I remember getting Tripredicus and Magnaboss and thinking, good grief, these are complex and they're flimsy and they don't hold together like my old ones from when I was a kid did so easily. These things are frustrating. Years later, now that I've had several third-party combiners, I look back and I think, oh my god, those were so stable and wonderful. I wish I could have them again. They're so nice. They're so easy. So, you definitely kind of change you change your anchoring point of what is too complex. So you change your anchoring point of what is too fragile,
Yeah.
what is too much diecast. We've definitely lowered that over the years from G1.
Well, I'm sure you've probably done that too with like someone who's not used to transforming Transformers, where they're like, oh my god, like how do you even do this? And you're like, here,
Oh, yeah.
and you just, here, done. Like
I remember when I first got back into Transformers in like 2004, and I got the book club Megatron reissue, and I was like, how the hell does this work? Like I was just like, this is the weirdest thing ever. Like, how does this make a gun? What is it supposed to do with it or whatever? And I was so perplexed by that toy. And now it's just like, you idiot. It's like 5 steps, whatever. And it just looks stupid in robot mode. I love it, but it's stupid. I can be honest with it. It's just like, now it's like, whatever. It's nothing. Now it's like MP36. Now that is like, what the hell? I haven't transformed that in a while. I did get quick with it.
I really liked MP36. It's one of those things, it is definitely a puzzle. Like there's a couple parts that are not intuitive, but for the most part, it's super complex, but it's a lot of fun.
The barrel. Ugh.
Yeah, the
every
barrel's
time,
tough.
it makes me cringe every time it takes me at least 20 minutes just to try to swivel it into place.
I haven't messed with it in a while. I need to mess with it again. I remember the first time I transformed it was like an hour, but then I remember the next time it was like 40 minutes. And then the last time I did it, I remember it was 20 minutes. Because I wasn't like stopwatching myself, but I'd play with it and then I'd pick it up like a couple weeks later and I'd mess with it again. And, like me and Peter, we talk about we don't use instructions. What I've noticed is when you figure it out yourself, at least, 95% of it, you make those neural pathways of how things work. And I will pick up a toy and I'll be going through it and all of a sudden I'll be like, there's something about this leg. And I'll be like, what is it? And then eventually it's like, that's right. You got to find the tab and press that. And now it goes boom, and it's like, it sticks with you then, if you're just reading a cheat sheet and just, copying and trying to follow along, because you have to start to like learn the figure, and it just sticks with you better. And then when you come to it again later, it's not as big of a deal.
I get that.
What's the scariest figure we've all transformed for the first time?
What again?
What's the scariest we've ever...
Define scary.
Yes. Okay. Define scary. I think I'm going to break this. I don't think this transforms. It's a transformer, but I think they're lying to me.
Yeah. I think...
I mean, I have to say the Fans Toys Blur, just because I fucking hate that toy. That's probably in my masterpiece collection, the toy I like the least. Just because even once I knew how to do it, like getting it all to line up in vehicle mode, it's still just, you can't get to the point where you just start crunching it all together. Like, please hold your spot, like nothing, like I'm not worried about it breaking. It's just like, it's all lined up. Come on. I don't think it's well engineered.
Yeah.
Me, everyone's going to disagree with me on this one because I know most people don't agree with me on this toy feeling fragile, but MPB's Megatron, honestly, like I hate playing with that thing as much as I love it. Like every time I look at it on the shelf, I'm like, this is such a cool toy. I want to play with it. But the back just makes me too nervous, like folding that, because mine came with so many stress marks already in it that I'm just so nervous that, this time will be the last. Like, I'll do it completely right. I'll do it in the right order. I'll be careful with it. And those stress marks will finally evolve into stress fractures that explode. And it's just too much. So I worry about that. It's a bummer because it's, that's one of the toys I look at. And I think, like, this is really a nice toy and I want it. So
I don't like the waist on that one where you got to pop it open. Like that, you have to move it so hard to get that to pop out. That scares me.
Real hard.
Yeah. Peter.
I don't want to say any of them have been scary. I've been pleasantly surprised by things that I was told that I should be afraid of. Just going by what I can see around me.
He's a pro.
I'm not
horses that nothing scares you.
No, I mean, I'm not a savant or anything, but there's savant right there. But no, anyway, not him. Fans, toys, Springer, Apache. I was told when I bought him to be afraid, be very afraid, and I was, and I stared at him in robot mode for a couple of days, played with him, posed him, and fiddled around with him, and then I was like, okay, I guess we gotta do this, and he wasn't bad at all. It was pretty intuitive, and so I don't know.
All right, Serge, what you got?
I had to look in my display as well. I'm gonna go with MP36 because by that time we had already gotten the switch over to the animation accurate stuff, but up until then it was smaller figures, and then 36 I think was really like the big leap from in terms of parts count, like that.
Well, that's also when they started painting it completely.
Yeah, because that one was a mixture of complexity and the paint. Like everyone was saying, this is scratching like nothing, and so that one I made sure to take my time, and I still ended up scratching a couple pieces here and there, and that one was just so many, and then a lot of little parts too that you just had to move into like the right position in order to swivel something out or pull something out.
Yes.
I would say Toy World Devastator, because the arm ratchets on that were really, really, really tight. And I had to consult a couple videos, like whenever you like moved it and whatnot. And I'm watching this on video and it's saying that it's like, I need to move the ratchet like this, but like I am like putting all of my like force into it and I still can barely get it. And so that one, like, I feel like again that, Anna, you had mentioned anything where you had to put a lot of force into it, like it really scares you. And so that one was a little bit like, okay, well, I've watched someone else do the same transformation, so I'm going to go ahead and give it a go. But
you mentioned, we've talked about YouTube for instructions for some of these difficult parts. One thing that pisses me off more than and it happened again with the X-Transbots trailer. I got to a point in there and I'm like, what is going on here? The instructions weren't helping me. And so I'll look at a reviewer and I'm like, okay, they did this. They didn't realize that part was off camera. The kids are like, crap. So I'll look at another one, and I remember Ben's Collectibles does this so often. He edits his transformation sequence, and whenever he gets to that part where you have to force something past, he cuts it. And it's just like, I need to know, does this just move, or do you got to force it a bit? And almost every time he cuts it, and I'm like,
I know.
Right, now,
he'll like struggle or something, and he'll be like, I'll do this off camera. And you're like, no!
No, I want to see it. I need to see what happens. How hard do you have to push that to get it across? And it's like, go find somebody else, I want to see someone else not break their figure doing this.
And then
so
you
that
watch
I know
Bobby
this is the right spot.
Skullface, and then you're like, okay, not as hard as that.
Cracks it in half.
It's already broke before he even gets it out there.
Breaking things on camera, that makes an impact on you. I still remember when we were talking about the MPB version 2, and I just ripped Spike in half. That was one of my favorite moments on the show.
I broke MP44 on the camera, but I don't think anybody noticed it. But that was because it dropped on the floor as I was messing with it, and it broke a smokestack. Because of course it broke a smokestack. But you know what I did? I mean, I was just like, it was live, but I was just like, oh well, And once the show was over, I took some super glue, I glued it back in place, and now when I mess with it, I just know don't touch that smokestack because it's just gonna fly off.
Speaking of breaking, it reminds me of a inside joke that I had with Christian. I hope he's listening or watches this at some point because the amount of pain that he brought me. So this was at TFCon 2016, I think I want to say. I bought the MMC Leisure, whatever you say it. It was the Diaclone colored Sphinx, the red one.
Yeah.
And so it comes with like the little driver, the little hologram driver. And while I was messing it and transforming it in my hotel room, I think I pressed on it the wrong way, and it sent the driver flying, like across the room. And I was like, like whenever something happens where it flies across the room, that's where you're like, oh fuck, like you had to make sure, like, oh, did any tabs break? It flew across the room, and he was just sitting there. He's like, you broke it, and like with like the most straight face, you broke it. And I'm freaking out. Like, I broke it. It turns out it just pops out, and it popped it back in. This was flying. But then fast forward to a couple months later, I ended up selling it on Facebook. And I posted up for sale on Facebook in a group like, hey, here's the figure, here's the price, here's the pictures. And he comments, he's like, you broke it. And I texted him a screenshot. And I'm like, why would you say that? And he deleted it. And he's like, I didn't realize the repercussions that would have.
What an asshole that guy. Right?
I know.
Man, that
I
guy.
hope he's listening to the show because we still joke about that to this day. Like the smallest crack or something, he'll be like, you broke it.
So
I wanted to say, like, go ahead.
I was going to say, Zoldron in the chat's talking about Planet X Summonus. I believe that's the Megatron, I think.
No, that was Pluto, I think. Summonus was one of the dinos, wasn't it? I think so.
Yeah, it wasn't Megatron, I know that.
Oh, okay. Well, I was thinking of the Megatron. Like, that has a bunch of sharp spikes on him. So
yeah, it's one of the Dinobots.
It's painful to transform. So I don't know if the Dinobot's the same way.
That's happened a couple times with the Planet X stuff. They're spiky.
Yeah, the next Triptychon, man. I'm pretty sure I've cut myself on that.
Well, you were talking about Make Toys Computron earlier, Rick. Like, I call that thing the finger bleeder. Like, because it's well made. It's very nice, but the transformation is not fun. But it's hard. Pointy, like even when it's not a pointy part, it is still pointy somehow. Just because it's just square and the way the edges are, that thing kills my hands.
I swear,
that's why I haven't touched it in like 10 years.
I swear, with some of these third-party like weapons, like you can cut open like an avocado with those things.
You can. So I was gonna say, like, I don't know if I am the one out of the 6 of us on here right now who came into this, like, the serious part of the fandom, the serious part of collecting the most recently. I don't really consider myself to have been, like, a really serious collector until, like, 2015, even though I've collected since I was, like, 3. But I wasn't really, like, trying to, I wasn't buying third party. I wasn't trying fancy stuff. And the thing that really got me when I came into this fandom was just, I feel like, the whole point in the show we're doing tonight, the expectation was that you wouldn't really play with your toys. Like, that you didn't actually play with them. A lot of people I met were like, oh, I transform it a couple times, but I never really, like, play with it or mess with it or pose it or take pictures. And it was just such a strange thing for me because I had been in the doll collecting community for years, and not like Barbie dolls, like high-end, super expensive, giant, like these big old things, right? And these are
the scary porcelain dolls.
Yeah, not porcelain. She's resin. She's pretty durable. But these are like, $300 dolls at the baseline that you spend hundreds of dollars on outfits. And you know what you do after that? You play with them. You're supposed to pose them, you're supposed to mess with them, you're supposed to handle them all the time. Parts wear out, you replace them. They're strung with elastic, you have to restrain them every few years. Parts of their like face paint might chip, so you repaint them. Like they're made to be messed with to the point where you have to repair them.
That's
and
interesting.
play with them. Yeah, and so it's cool. There's like the whole fandom, the whole group for that kind of doll collecting is more like they're more aware of it. They're more into it. It's more like the playing with it, the messing with it. So Transformers just like really surprised me when it was like, oh, I'm going to get this and I'm going to go literally play with it. I'm going to pose it with its missiles, make it do things. And
I think it's related to cost because, if I break a $20 retail figure, I'm not saying that $20 is nothing, but, it's a lot of an easier pill to swallow to replace a $20 figure than it is to replace a, couple $100 figure. Especially if it's an older, out of production where, good luck getting a replacement part. It's I'm just not going to really mess with it.
Well, I mean, like she was saying, though, the dolls were very expensive as well, multi-$100s, and they're just like, yeah, that's what it is.
Oh, yeah,
but I feel like there's less parts, though, no? I mean, I don't know about anything about that fan.
Oh, no, there's a lot of parts. Like, these are very highly jointed, highly flexible things.
I wasn't expecting it to do that.
To the room with dolls, I would not want to step in room if there was a bunch of those dolls staring at me.
See, that's the thing, though, is you got to invite friends over, and they go to sleep at night, and then you pose the dolls around the bed to wake up to.
Back when I was on the dating market, I had several of my dolls in the main entranceway of my house when they would come to visit for the first time, just as kind of like a test.
Dates, huh?
Can you live with a collector? Can you live with someone who really thinks that this isn't creepy, but it's pretty? Because I do. I think they're very pretty. So you have to be able to deal with that.
All follow you, if you move from side to side, like their eyes.
Too bad.
Do you have to keep telling them that they're pretty? Just to keep them at bay? Is that why you're like you're pretty? You're so pretty. I love you. I promise.
I never get rid of you. I promise.
Did you ever on the carpet with your dates and be like, all right, you're going to be her, I'm going to be her. And they're going to the tea party.
You got to refer to them as us. You're not dating me, you're dating us.
I would love that. That would be great. That would be a good test. I wouldn't pass that. I wouldn't pass that test. But I was going to say the other thing that kind of got me is you didn't need to own a lot of these, right? You have a few and you put different outfits on them and you mess with them. And, if you own more than a few, you're thousands of dollars into the hobby. Where Transformers, a part of the hobby is to get more and more and more. So I feel I kind of miss that aspect of really, really heavily playing with a certain figure, messing with it over the course of years over and over. Because I used to do that before I got heavy into the collecting, like you all who rubbed off on me. And
no, you should play with your stuff if you want to play with it.
I agree.
Break, so be it.
Right. I totally agree with that.
No one's telling you not to.
Yeah. Well, somebody on the internet probably is, but they can shut
sure.
up. Who cares?
But
Yeah, that's.
I think that's the difference too with some of the complexities you're talking about. Some of the figures that I think if you only had a handful of these figures, that you would actually want them to be, more intricate and whatnot and take longer to transform. Whereas if you have 100 of them, it's going to be frustrating because. Yeah.
It depends on the collector. Not all collectors want super articulated, super intricate transformations. They want I like Carman go robot or whatever, and they're happy with Masterpiece Sideswipe or
I think
whatever.
Part of the reason why I don't really mess with my stuff is because I'm so damn lazy. I'll transform something and it'll stay in vehicle mode on my nightstand for 2 weeks before I'm all right, time to put it back. There's too many things on here.
I'm at that too. I have so many now that I feel I'm just too lazy to go through all of them like I want to. But I do kind of miss that about my old fandoms. Or, when I only had a few MP toys back in the day. I think I made it to 2017 with single digit MP figures. I did not have that many whatsoever. Now I have 50 or something. Some stupid number.
Damn.
But anywho,
Only
back
50.
then I messed with them all the time. You know, like I would pull off. I had old crappy Masterpiece Skywarp, and I transformed him like once a week. I messed with them, and it was just like those were fun times. I enjoyed that because I don't know. They should be fun to go back to later.
Like another thing to keep in mind too is like a lot of that stuff was pre 2007. You know, and I would play with my toys I have more, but I'm usually getting something new in.
Right.
And I'm playing with that. And as well as like a large part of the way I enjoy this hobby now is also the display and, you know, working on my collection as well as like, you know, picking up stuff to sell and, you know, shipping it to Nick in the worst box ever or listing it on eBay. You know, doing those types of things where it's not that, oh, you know, I have too much to transform, or it's just like I'm interacting with the hobby in new ways. Something new comes in, I definitely push it back and forth, you know, and then it goes on the shelf, and then usually there's something else coming in, and I'm going to do that, and I was like, oh, where am I going to put it? I need to rearrange, and you know, I'm doing that stuff more than, you know, transforming all my toys again. Which I mean, I wouldn't mind transforming them, but usually, yeah, I'm doing other stuff.
I agree with you on that.
5 years, and I still haven't set up my movie toys because it is a daunting task.
I'll come over and do that. I'll help you. I'll fly in to help you with that.
Just leave them.
I love the movie stuff.
Well, did we cover everything, Lucas?
Really,
sure.
Surge.
I was gonna say, Surge.
Sure.
This is
Yeah, I mean,
topic.
I thought we had some really good discussions. I'm glad that it evolved into bigger, more than just the overall. I mean, we got into some really good discussion about QC, and I think, you know, with recent happenings, that's a very relevant topic. So that was all good stuff from everybody. It was nice to see different perspectives.
Like I think what kills me the most is like I do think they're made again to be played with or whatever, but sometimes there are definitely some engineering choices that make you scratch your head. You know, it's like why would you do this? You know better. Come on, we all know better. And I understand there's definitely challenges of you design something and you make it and then you get it in hand, you know, once the molds are made, you know, because you got to go through a long process before you finally have something in hand, right? Like with the real plastic, you know, they make test shots and they try to refine the tolerances, blah, 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 blah. But when you finally get the final product in hand, you're like, oh, shit. You know, like that happens. But sometimes it's like, oh, you put all this load bearing on this small pin. What did you think was going to happen? You know, and these are very complex these days, you know, especially the Masterpiece stuff, the high-end collectible stuff. You know, so sometimes stuff falls through, but sometimes it is kind of boneheaded, I think, to a degree.
I mean, I think the tough thing is these are physical objects that transform from one thing to another that, like, and again, you know, when they're going through the process, that there's not an infinite amount of money and time to develop this. So it's like sometimes you have to go screw it and ship it or whatever and hope it works out, you know, kind of thing. Like Rick said, it's like X number of complaints, like, you know, whatever. It's if you divide, you know, whatever X by Y, that, you know,
Car companies do the same with like how many deaths are we going to get versus doing a recall.
How many lawsuits can we handle?
Dark realities.
It's true. I mean, it's true. I think I read an article about, not to sidetrack too much, but Honda, like they waited a long time until they did a recall on their airbags for a ton of vehicles. I mean, they literally waited until like, all right, we've hit the threshold for how many deaths we can handle. We got to do a recall.
Like the lawsuits are more expensive than recalling at this point. So
typically, high-end collectibles are not life and death. At least hopefully.
None of this stuff matters. It's not important.
You never know.
Who knows?
I've heard these toys are
third party.
sometimes a choking hazard.
If Fans Toy Superion takes a shelf dive, you're probably going to get a concussion.
Yeah, these Fans Toys figure. I think you can kill a man with how these things weigh. You get one good whack.
Oh man.
You made a comment earlier, Sergio, about is Takara trying to compete with other high-end collectible toys, and I think they absolutely were. You know, we've talked about how the huge increase in Masterpiece prices, like with MP4, it took a big jump. You know, but it is one of those. If you dabble in other robot collectibles, that was Takara adjusting to the market. Like
Yeah.
we have been really spoiled, and I've said it before, in the Transformer world to have such complex toys made so cheaply. And finally it stopped. And and it sucked that a lot of people felt they were all of a sudden priced out. It wasn't like here's a new line and it's going to be in this tier always, right? And the line's been going on a long time. And so it kind of sucks that it made that jump, but again, I buy some Solo Chogokin stuff and it's very expensive. I don't buy a lot of it, but a lot of it's actually simpler than what Takara is doing. Solo Chogokin, both Voltrons, are way simpler than what Takara does. They're excellent figures. Don't get me wrong, but like in Gunbuster, excellent figure. I really like it. It's fun. I don't know who the hell Gunbuster is. He's just a cool toy, but parts on it broke, just entropy over time, and God Mars broke just because of kind of bad engineering and some QC in that arm joint. So it happens, but the price went up just to it put them what high-end collectibles look like. It's just kind of how it is.
I was gonna mention
I really like.
Oh, sorry.
I was just gonna say I like this topic because I think this has really shaped how I collect. Like I think learning from, buying a toy from a certain maker and learning whether or not I can really play with it has really shaped like what am I going to do in the future. The fact that I've kind of gotten tired of my MP stuff is really half the problem of why I'm thinking about getting rid of it, but I'd say most of it is because I just don't know if I'm going to want to buy more in the future, because it's gotten to the point where I can't play with it in the way I like to anymore. Like
it's
the paint
fine.
makes me nervous, Rob.
It's okay to not like MP.
Right, absolutely. And when you often talk about how, the MMC stuff is really close to MP, except it doesn't have enough paint type of thing. And I always think but that's better. Like, because then I can play with it, right? I can move the joints around. They don't scratch paint. This is so much more fun. This is way more masterpiece for me because it's more what I want. So I think that's, this type of stuff really should guide your toy decisions. If you like to play with toys, there's certain ones that are going to be scarier than others.
Yeah.
I was going to mention book club this week. They're going to be finishing up Dark Cybertron chapters 10 through 12. So
thank goodness.
So join them.
It amazes me that Anna doesn't like it, because no one likes Dark Cybertron, and Anna, when it comes to fiction, only likes the stuff that no one else likes. And if people like it, she finds it boring. So it's
anything related to Transformers.
I like the story. I don't like the way it jumps around. Like, I really do like the overall story of Dark Cybertron. I've enjoyed it. I read it before, but I had forgotten almost all of it. I really do like that part, but I don't like the way it just kind of jumps from perspective to perspective and time and bleh.
I don't like the way the art jumps from artist to artist and is jarring and painful.
It makes it more jarring.
But doesn't Livio do some of those? And I know he's everyone's favorite Transformer artist.
Sometimes Hardhead turns into a He-Man character. It's really interesting.
With like lots of corded neck muscles and stuff.
Yeah.
And then I think his last name is Rojo. Antonio Rojo or Antilio Rojo. There's another guy whose art is just everyone's just a person with a bucket on their head. It's really
you get that weird thing where it's you let artists draw like how they like to do it. Within some Bumblebee should roughly have this shape and these parts on it, right? Versus you end up being Pat Lee, or not Pat Lee, sorry. What's his name? Or is it Pat Lee? I'm blanking.
Dreamwave?
Dreamwave guy.
Pat Lee.
On
Figueroa?
No. I mean Pat Lee, the bad one. Where it's house style. Yeah. Everyone draws it exactly like this. Which obviously has a lot of other drawbacks. So I think it's good to let artists flex with what they like, but sometimes it's a little weird. Sorry, off topic.
Yeah.
So join book club if you want to talk about those things and more.
Yeah.
Yes, that's Sunday night at 8:30 Central, 9:30 Eastern on the Discord. So the link should be, with the YouTube and whatnot. So.
And TFYLP still canceled?
I think it's on
see.
hiatus.
We'll see. Maybe we can get it going here again. So, what about Cut the Tape, Rick? Are we gonna have a Cut the Tape this week?
Cut the Tape. We didn't have a Cut the Tape this week. I had a tooth removed, so I was a little loopy because of Percocets. But my doctor,
cut the gums.
I'm
Cut
okay.
the gums.
Yeah. My doctor says that the voices should stop.
I mean,
That's good.
let's be real here. Paul's had that baby for like 2 weeks or something. They basically take care of themselves at this point.
Right.
He should be back any minute. So,
What
I had a
Exactly.
job by that point.
Cool.
yeah.
Exactly.
Oh, I was having to live, earn my keep. That breast milk wasn't
Oh.
free.
3 miles
Work for it.
uphill.
Eating the baby.
Thursday
Happy National
night.
Women's Day, everybody.
Oh yes. I was gonna say Thursday night on Microcasters. Are we doing X Pants, Anna?
Is this what you want? Is this
I
a
don't
choice
know.
you want to make, Lucas?
I guess. I don't know. Rob, did you want to join us?
I cannot join this Thursday. I can next
Okay.
Thursday.
Oh, maybe we have to wait a week then. I don't know, but we'll
Next
figure it out.
Thursday, I will not be here.
Poop.
I'm busy.
It might just be X Pants then. I don't know what else we talk about.
I
Venusaur?
don't know.
Venusaur, what?
Who's X-Pants?
Ultimate
X
X
Pants.
Pants. That's his name. Ultimate X Pants.
Like, you're joking. Like pants.
It's Expanse. Like he's
Like
expansive.
expansive.
Yeah,
But the joke
it's
is X Pants.
because it's a horrible name.
Just look at
Horrible
this guy.
name,
Like,
horrible
should his
boy.
name be Ultimate
know. I
Expanse
didn't-
or
I-
should it be X Pants?
I didn't spend money on that.
He's got an X on his belt. His X belt holds on his X pant. Get it?
I got them on sale. I had a coupon.
Is it
Gotta keep it down.
X people?
All
Anyway,
right.
maybe X Pants, maybe not.
Please put us out of our misery, Lucas.
Well, thank you everyone for joining us. Thanks to Zaldrun and Catherine and Peacemo and Jay Holla and Josh and who else am I missing?
Steve and Ron.
Steve, yep.
We had
Did I miss any
good turnouts
names?
tonight.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, we had some side chatter going on.
So,
Yeah, lots of
so-
activity.
Such a
Yeah,
good
Good
topic.
stuff.
Good job, Serge.
So, yep. Thank you guys, and we will see you next week.